Alright, so we're checking out another 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery from another new company on the channel here. This is a company called TimeUSB, and I wasn't really sure what the USB stood for, but I guess this is their logo here, or motto: time full of energy, useful, stable, and blissful. And if you're looking at this and you're like, another 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery, what's so different about it? And you'd be right, it looks pretty much like all the other ones that I've reviewed on the channel, but all the other ones were 100 amp hours. That's your standard size for this, I guess, sort of dimensions, and I'll show you the dimensions in a little bit later. But like the other ones that I reviewed, especially the last one, the one from Vatterer, they're all this like group 31 size. There are different denotations for the size of the battery. This is a group 31. And most of the 12 volt 100 amp hour batteries are this size, this group 31 size. But as you can see here, this one is 140 amp hours. So a little bit heavier. I think it's the Vatterer was 24 pounds. This is 28 pounds. So obviously with 40 more amp hours of capacity, you're going to get a little bit more weight. So definitely worth it for the extra weight, because the energy density in this one is quite a bit higher. And at this nominal voltage, it amounts to 1792 watt hours. This one also has Bluetooth 5.0, so there's a sticker here up on top, and to show you your specs there: 1792 watt hours. Max continuous charge is 140 amps, and discharge current is 150 amps. So it does have a 150 amp BMS on here because it is 140 amp hour battery, so it's got a larger BMS than your typical 100 amp hour batteries. And then the max continuous output power is 1920 watts. And then this one has Bluetooth 5.0 in there, and you just scan this QR code, or you can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store to download it's called the TimeUSB app. And with the battery, obviously you get the little carrying strap on here, which you can remove once you've installed it. But you get the battery, of course, you get the product manual, and then you get this card here. It's a little sort of quick start guide, because when I first connected up this battery, the first thing I do when I get these, I check the voltage, and I connected it up to my voltmeter. And it was like 3 volts. I was like, that's weird. Why is that? And so the BMS shuts off, and basically it's at a very low voltage. Most of these batteries come at a storage voltage, usually like 50%, around 13 volts or so. And that's what I usually check for. But in this case, in this one here, this BMS, that's a smart BMS, it basically shuts the battery off to protect any sort of dead shorts from happening while in shipment. So it came in at like around 3 volts, I think. So that's what this card here is for. And it tells you that it's basically in like a sleep mode, and you have to charge it for 3 to 10 seconds with an actual lithium iron phosphate battery charger. That will wake up the battery. So I put it on a charger for like 10 seconds, and then I remeasured the voltage, and it was 13 something volts, like 13.1 volts, which is about 50% storage capacity for the battery. And just to show you a little bit more information on the website for the product page. Currently battery is at $240, a pretty good deal. So it does have the Bluetooth and the low temperature protection. It does have some other protections as well. I'll show you that here in a second. But it does not have the self-heating feature that you saw in the last video on the Vatterer. So that's why there's sort of discrepancy in pricing. Obviously, this is a higher capacity battery with the Bluetooth as well, which you can't keep track on the app in terms of the capacity. But it doesn't have the self-heating functions. So that does make the Vatterer stand out in that aspect, but you get the extra 40 amp hours of capacity. And it does show you what the Group 31 measurements are. It's 13 long by 6.77 wide by 8.5 inches in height. And that's a pretty standard size for most 12 volt 100 amp hour batteries, but now we're seeing more 140, 150 amp hour batteries in this Group 31 size. And so you're seeing the energy density increase inside the battery. Again, 150 amp BMS, 150 amps max continuous discharge, and 140 amps max charging. So again, the low temperature protection, if you're not aware what that is basically when it detects that the temperature has fallen below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it will prevent the battery from charging. And then if it's in a discharge state, if the temperature falls below -4 degrees Fahrenheit, then it will prevent the battery from further discharging. So when it's extremely cold, those are things that come in to protect the battery, because the lithium iron phosphate does not like the cold. And basically, if you try and charge the battery below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it will pretty much destroy the battery. That's why those protections are in place. And you do have some different options here for purchasing. So you can buy just the one battery. And interesting to just show you the breakdown and price per watt hour, 13 cents per watt hour. Pretty reasonable for a lot of these batteries in this price range right now. You can buy them in a 2-pack, 4-pack. Obviously, you can set this up in a battery bank, and I'll show you that. They show a diagram what that looks like further down the page. But you can buy them in bulk if you want, if you happen to need that. It is IP65 waterproof and dustproof rated, so should work in wet environments. And they do show that obviously in a boating or trolling, if you're using it as a trolling battery, you can use that in a boat, for example. It does have a 10-year lifespan. That's pretty standard for lithium iron phosphate, up to 15,000 cycles. I will show you the app here, but it does tell you what the app does in terms of state of charge, temperature, power, voltage, current, discharge, switch, cycle times, and shutdown. So you can actually shut the battery down and also basically turn off the discharge function. And if you want to build a very large battery bank, you can max out these in basically a 4S setup with 16 batteries, which will give you pretty crazy 28.672 kilowatt hours of energy storage. And you see a little image here of what a 16 battery bank looks like here. Obviously, this is going to be in some sort of a solar setup for a home or something like that, where a bunch of solar panels, you have MPPT controller and inverter, and then you basically use that as home energy backup. And that's, if you want to get a whole bunch of these, you can definitely connect that up in a 16 battery bank. And for those of you that are interested in using it as a trolling motor, it sort of gives you an idea of thrust and max amp draw, for example, and also the running time. So depending upon obviously how much power you're drawing, the more power you're drawing, the shorter the running time. But if you're drawing less power, you'll have more running time. But you can see they're pretty crazy, almost 4.67 hours on just this one battery in a basically if you're using it for a small boat, for example. Pretty crazy. So inside the battery are these lithium iron phosphate prismatic cells. There's probably 4 of them in there. If most of these are most of the 100 amp hour batteries have 4. They're basically set up in series, and so that's how you get the about 12.8 volts nominal. The warranty is 5 years in this one, in case you're wondering. That's pretty standard for the industry. Cycle life, so they're doing 4,000 cycles at 100% depth of discharge, 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge, and 15,000 cycles at 60% depth of discharge. So if you're not going all the way to 0% and charging to 100%, if you're kind of in the middle, kind of keeping it, maybe 80% to 20%, you're going to get more cycles and probably increase the longevity of the battery if you're not going to the extreme. So something worth noting. Alrighty, quick look at the app. I've already installed it and connected it up via the Bluetooth. You do need Bluetooth on your phone, of course, for this to work. You can see right now it's currently unconnected, so you have to hit this button here to connect it. There we go. And we can see we're in a standby situation, 98% capacity, which translates to about 144.1 amp hours. Shows you the battery temperature, 21 degrees Celsius, or I guess technically that's the BMS temperature. And then you got your power there, watts, current, and the current voltage. You can go here and you can change some settings. So you do firmware upgrade, of course, shows you the number of cycle times, device name, and this is the discharge switch. So if you want to remotely stop the battery from providing power, kill the discharge basically capability, you hit that, or you can power off the battery as well. I believe if you hit the power off, I think it just disconnects it says here after powering off the device will disconnect from Bluetooth, and then it says charge the battery to power on and reconnect Bluetooth. So that basically puts that battery back into the state that it came when you shipped it. So obviously then you'll have to put it on a charger for that 3 to 10 seconds to wake it up. Basically puts the battery to like a deep sleep state. That's what the power off function is here. So obviously I'm going to keep using this. I'm not going to do that for now, but if you're not going to be using the battery for an extended period of time, I would say don't leave it in a high state of charge like this. Although lithium iron phosphate is probably going to be okay at this high state of charge. It's not going to care. But ideally, if you're definitely going to leave it sort of sitting around for a while, maybe bring it down to about 80% and then turn it off. There shouldn't be any parasitic draw on the battery once the BMS is shut off. I believe there might be a small drain over a long period of time, so I would maybe check the state of the battery every couple, maybe 3 months or so, if you're worried about it maybe just draining on its own. But even with basically the BMS powered on with just Bluetooth disconnected, I haven't noticed that much drawdown. Like I was just having this sit here for a few days, and it was at 98% like 3 days ago when I did all the testing. So it hasn't gone down in 3 days at all. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. So of course I did do my full capacity testing in this battery. Wanted to see what I could draw out of this here. So I charged it up to 100%. And then I put it on my capacity meter and I ran it down at around about 118 watts or so, down to about 10.5 volts, which is pretty much zero. And at the end of the day, it basically shut off at 10.5 volts and had about 1% capacity left at 10.5 volts. And then it recovered to about 11 volts at rest. So there was a little bit of capacity left, like maybe a little over 1 amp hour at 10.5 volts, which probably should have set it to 10 volts to get that last 1.1 amp hours, I believe. But even at that point, at 1% from 100%, I still got like 1,851 watt hours, and the battery is rated for 1,792 watt hours, so there was plenty of extra capacity in here. That's usually what the manufacturers do, is they'll rate the battery for what they think the capacity will be at about half its lifespan. So at the beginning, you're going to get that 1,850 probably watt hours, and then maybe 2-3 years down the road, it'll probably be what the rated capacity is, assuming you're using it on a regular basis. So they're saying, maybe in a few years down the road, you'll be at 1,792 watt hours. That's kind of how they rate the batteries. So definitely good to know that there's a pretty large buffer there. So even though you're only supposed to get 1,792 watt hours, this one gave out a lot more. Now, of course, this particular BMS can go up to 1,920 watts continuous discharge, but I don't have anything that big. I've got a 1,000 watt inverter, and I did run it on 1,000 watts, basically a vacuum cleaner, going around pretty much around 1,000 watts, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, so kind of hovering around there. And it can handle that no problem, continuous discharge, which is only like half of its rating. So like, I think it's like rated for 150 amps. I'm getting like 85, which is a little bit more than half, but yeah, didn't even tax the battery of the BMS whatsoever. Obviously you can go quite a bit higher in this one, but I just don't have anything that can basically test the capability at that high of rate. So overall, definitely a good battery here. Everything tested out and worked really well. I think for those of you that are looking for a Group 31 sized battery, but want a little bit more capacity, this 140 amp hour battery is definitely worth looking into. Definitely like the Bluetooth feature, so you can just basically control it and look at what's going on inside the battery without having additional monitoring devices connected to it. And you get the extra capacity in that same size. So if you have a 100 amp hour battery and you want to replace it with another battery with more capacity, perhaps it's in a confined space where you can't really put anything in larger, then this is going to be perfect. You're going to get that extra 40 amp hours of capacity. You can stick it in that same small space and just basically swap it in, swap it out, and you're good to go, and you get that extra capacity without any loss in terms of like it eating up more space. So perfect for that. With that being said, I'm going to end the video here. Link will be down in the video description if you guys want to check it out. Questions, comments, let me know down in the comments section below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.